Here's the funny part, again, for my English-speaking audience. The other day I made a video about white left, leave us alone, Asians, we don't want any pandering, la 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 la, and it's technically true because statistically speaking, Asians don't ask for this kind of pandering, even though they have suffered similar situations, well, equal situations to basically what every race has suffered at one point in their history. And some people just got so offended. But it is clear that they didn't even watch the video, because if you actually watch the video, it's the most tame. The thing about talking about, oh, sharing our cultures, take the best from this, you should learn from this, not carry a grudges and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you're racist against white people. Yeah, you should see the picture of the guy who actually said that. Someone's been drinking copious amounts of soy. Like, damn. Like, if you want to know why soy products went up, he's guilty. Just check him out. Just look at his freaking face, man. Oh, and I'm part Franco-German, so yeah, I'm racist against whites. I actually asked him, like, who am I racist against? Because I'm pretty sure this was gonna be fun. Oh, you're against white. Because when you say white left, it's like, okay, but white left, it's the left part that counts. If I said all whites go away, okay, that's racist, which would also be stupid because that would also take me out of the picture partially. If I said white left, it's because it was specifically under the context that myself and most Asians don't want white people to go around and, oh, the poor baby, poor thing, here welfare, here laws. We don't want that. We do fine on our own. I mean, I don't think there's any East Asian, including Indians from India, who do worse than white people. In fact, I think all East Asians and Indians specifically, the ones in the States, do better than white people. We don't need the pandering. We don't need character changes. We don't need laws protecting us. We don't need welfare. In fact, last I checked, well, I don't know, they supposedly took that out. We actually get minus 50 in our SATs, which is kind of interesting. What would they do to me? Because I'm also part Latino, so Latinos get plus and Asian gets minus. What did they do? Did they balance out or something? So my SAT scores, instead of getting plus 150, they get only plus 100 because I lose the 50 for being Asian. I don't know. Maybe I recognize myself as a Latino, then I get 150 points more, and I'll just come out like a hyper genius or something. Well, that's out of the way. One thing I want to talk about race relations specifically with the black community is that, again, we need to understand this, right? Like, there's no excuse for violence. There's no excuse for, like, demanding things, like, let's say reparations or something like that. Because technically we've all have to pay each other at one point in time. I mean, there was white slavery, and it was actually longer than the black slavery from Europe to the U.S. The European white slavery, where they took Europeans, was actually lasted longer. And in fact, in some countries, if it were possible, it would still be going on. North Africa, Saudi Arabia, the good guys. So take that away. Nothing excuses that, and as I said, nothing excuses violence. But we can understand perception, and this is very important because our perception determines our reality. And sometimes perception is more important than reality. So let's see it this way. We all know that the black community has suffered many discriminatory actions in the US, for instance, specifically, like this is the example we're talking about. There have been laws, there have been actions that flooded the ghetto with drugs. They even changed the Second Amendment, and, well, not necessarily the Second Amendment, but the gun laws, because the Black Panther Party for self-defense, they started going out with shotguns, viewing what cops were doing, and if they acted wrongly, they would shoot them. So they changed that, stuff like that, which is a very fascinating story. I recommend anyone check out how the Black Panther Party came to be and the tactics they used, and, it was a very good thing, and it was very legitimate. They didn't just go out and riot and shoot people randomly like BLM is doing today. They actually were very focused, very organized, and they even had very special tactics to hide their numbers. Because I always remember Huey. I don't remember the name of the other guy. There were like two main guys, right, of the group, and they started to hang out separate because the people thought they were in the thousands, but if they went together, they would really find out there were only like a couple of hundred, maybe. So it was a very smart move, and it goes to show about the resilience of the black community. But again, coming back to the subject, this is where the perception comes from. Okay, statistically, we can talk that white on black crime has gone down, police on black shooting has gone down, even proportionally, and et cetera, et cetera. In spite of the fact that crime has gone up in both the criminal statistics and the victimization statistics. They both basically say that the black community does more crime than they have population. Even BLM posted that out, and I don't think they knew what they were doing. They're not like the Black Panthers of the old days, They were smart. These guys, not really. So even though we know that as a fact, as a reality, you have to understand that these people grew up with the stories of their grandparents and the stories of their parents. So imagine yourself. Put whatever reason, something your mom, a characteristic of your mother. And your mother, let's say, maybe she's of X religion or X race. And now imagine if you grew up your whole life with your mom telling you, my parents suffered discrimination in this way, I suffered discrimination in this way, which they did, in fact. And then you go out in your life having this, because we come from stories. I mean, even the Bible is a collection of stories that came, passed through time. And you go out with this perception. So you can understand that whenever something happens that remotely suggests that this is ongoing, they're going to be like, aha, you see? It's going on right there. My mom was right. Oh my God, my mom's right. Cops are trying to kill us. Oh my God, my mom is right. The laws are trying to screw us over. My grandparents, and you keep going. So it reinforces the situation. So even though society has changed to improve, people need to understand that it's going to take some generations before this is okay. Let's give another example of American history. The US and the UK have been at war, You won independence from them. And there was a century and something where, before you became allies. I think it had to happen until basically World War I. So we're talking about a century and a half. Although during that century and a half, it wasn't like, we were stop screwing around with you guys. No, there were still wars, battles. The Canada was used to fight the U.S., etc. So okay, you can understand that. But that's my point. You need to have, a society of several generations for that thing to come into your mind, and the memories of the actual discrimination, legal inaction, etc., to be erased. So please try to understand that. I repeat, that doesn't condone violence. I am of the opinion, if you loot, I shoot. That's perfectly fine. Self-defense is perfectly fine. Like that guy, I mean, like the story of that guy who was with an AK-47 in front of a car. I mean, okay, maybe I didn't see, there's no specific picture, or there's some that kind of suggest that he had his rifle like pointed at that. Dude, if I have a mob surrounding me and one of those guys has a rifle, and to my understanding, I could be wrong, he opened fire, I'm not gonna debate him. Are you aiming at me, kind sir? No, fuck that. I'll just start blasting him myself. So you can understand that. Let's see how this process goes. I don't know exactly how, but it's gonna happen. Same thing with the famous lawyer couple that brandished their weapons. I mean, they broke into a gated community and were in their property. So you see 50 people, and you've seen the news of when these groups of people, the protesters, right? Don't turn this about race, okay? Don't be an ass. It has nothing to do with that. Protesters, because there were white people too and Latinos too, so fuck it. I didn't see many Asians though. Enter someplace, they've been vandalized, they've been destroyed. I mean, even there's this funny story about this guy who was like, oh, Trump, I went out and I saw nothing. And a couple of days later, life came at him fast. His house was basically vandalized, or at least the building where he lived in, and he couldn't go in because there were bomb threats, etc. So You have to understand. I mean, if they would have just openly, started firing on them, I'd be like, okay, they went overboard. Screw them, especially if nobody fired first. It was just standing out there. You have a right to warn people off, especially if it's your property. That's, there's no discussion about that. Inside your house, okay, that's another story. If you're inside my house already, I'm not even gonna debate you. What are you here for? Are you interested in some snacks? No, no, no. I'm gonna start opening fire, and that's perfectly well within the moral and legal framework of self-defense, because your life is at risk, your family's at risk, etc. There's a mob, so even if they were unarmed, trust me, 50 people beat one gun. Letting you know. Because it takes, mainly, unless you have a very, very, very good aim, it takes more than one shot to bring down someone down. So, in conclusion, that's the thing. Please understand the plight of the African American community, the black community, understand what they went through, and maybe you'll see them in another light. But again, that does not excuse wrong action. Have a great one.